The drizzle in Seoul that morning felt heavier than the luggage Doyen dragged behind her. Her braids clung to her cheeks as she stood before the tall gates of Hansung University, heart pounding like the talking drum she grew up hearing at family weddings in Lagos. "First day," she whispered to herself. "God, I beg, don't let me mess this up." At 22, Doyen was younger than most lecturers. A contract hire under an international exchange program, she had to prove she belonged here, not just to her colleagues, but to herself. She adjusted her blazer, straightened her notes, and entered the classroom. The lecture hall buzzed with chatter. Students tapped on phones, whispered about the Nigerian professor they had seen on the notice board. As she wrote her name on the board, Dr. Doyen Ajayi, murmurs rippled through the room. Some students looked curious, some skeptical. "Good morning, class," she said, her accent carrying both Yoruba warmth and English crispness. "Today we begin International Media Studies." Before she could continue, the door slammed open. In walked Kang Minjun. "Welcome to Munlyt Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales? Then hit like, subscribe, and join the circle. Every story begins with you." Every eye turned. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in an expensive jacket that screamed money, Minjun strolled in as if the world belonged to him. His face was carved in cold marble, handsome, arrogant, and entirely uninterested in rules. "Sorry I'm late," he said flatly, sliding into a seat at the back. His tone made it clear he wasn't sorry at all. Doyen cleared her throat. "Mr. Kang Minjun." He leaned back, smirk tugging at his lips. "But you can just call me Minjun. Everyone does." The class chuckled. Doyen's jaw tightened. She had been warned. Minjun, heir to Kang Group, the richest tech conglomerate in Korea. A chaebol prince. Untouchable. "Well, Mr. Kang Minjun," she said firmly, "in this class, respect is not optional. Sit properly, open your notes." The room went still. A few students gasped softly. No one ever spoke to him like that. Minjun tilted his head, amused. "You must be new here." "I am," Doyen replied, her voice steady. "But authority is not measured by how long you've been around. It's measured by discipline. Now, shall we continue?" The clash of gazes between them felt like two swords meeting. The students shifted in their seats, sensing this was not just a lecture, it was a duel. Doyen launched into her lesson, speaking with passion about global media, African storytelling, and how movies rivaled Hollywood in production volume. But she could feel his eyes on her the whole time, testing, mocking, curious. When she asked a question, Minjun raised his hand lazily. "Professor, do you really think Nigerian movies can compete with Korean dramas?" "Sounds like wishful thinking." The class erupted in laughter. Doyen's lips curved into a calm smile. "Perhaps you're right, Mr. Kang. Korean dramas dominate in romance. But when it comes to making people laugh, cry, and think all in one film, movies has mastered it. I'll be happy to assign you a list of movies if you're not too busy with your late arrivals." The laughter this time was on him. Minjun blinked, momentarily disarmed. Doyen adjusted her notes, hiding her grin. Round one hers. But Minjun wasn't the type to lose quietly, and that was how their battle began. The next morning, Doyen arrived early, determined not to let the memory of Kang Minjun's smug smirk rattle her. She arranged her slides, wrote a few bullet points on the board, and inhaled deeply. But as soon as the clock hit 9, Minjun strolled in again, this time not late, but deliberately loud. His designer sneakers squeaked on the floor, his phone still in hand as if the lecture hall were his living room. "Mr. Kang," Doyen said sharply, phones away. He looked up, feigning innocence. "But Professor, what if I'm taking notes?" The class snickered. On Instagram, she shot back without missing a beat. More laughter. Minjun's lips twitched, but he didn't back down. Instead, he slid the phone into his pocket, leaned back in his chair, and folded his arms, watching her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. Doyen pressed on with her lecture, this time about media influence and shaping culture. She spoke about movies' rise, the global reach of Afrobeats, and the way Korean dramas had exploded across African households. The students oohed, impressed by her confidence. The class erupted, half cheering, half laughing. Minjun's smirk returned, sharper than ever. "Fine. You recommend one movie. If I like it, I'll admit you're right. If not, he let the words hang. You owe me something. Do-yoon crossed her arms. Such as? He tapped his chin in mock thought. Teach me how to cook Nigerian jollof rice. The students gasped. Someone whispered, Day back. Another giggled. Phones discreetly came out, already recording. Do-yoon's cheeks warmed, but she refused to flinch. Deal. And if you like it, you'll stand up in this class and admit to stop coming late to my classes. Min-joon extended his hand across the aisle. His eyes glinted with challenge. Shake on it, Professor. She hesitated, then clasped his hand. His palm was warm, his grip firm. For a moment, too long to ignore, the room faded. The students burst into cheers, snapping photos, chanting, movies versus K-drama. Do-yoon released his hand quickly, clearing her throat. Back to the lesson. But even as she turned away, she felt his gaze on her, steady, amused, and curious. And deep down, Min-joon knew one thing for certain: this semester was about to get very interesting. By the weekend, word of Dr. Do-yoon and Min-joon had spread across Hansan University like wildfire. Clips of Do-yoon and Min-joon's handshake were circulating online, captioned with hashtags. #ColdAir versus Professor. Do-yoon sighed as she scrolled through her phone in her small rented apartment. Her Nigerian roommate, Ifeoma, an exchange student obsessed with K-pop, nearly burst from excitement. Girl, you're trending. Ifeoma squealed, waving her phone. Do you know how many fangirls would kill for Min-joon to notice them? And here you are, shaking hands like you're in a drama. Do-yoon rolled her eyes. Please, I beg. That boy is just trouble in designer shoes. Trouble that looks fine, Ifeoma teased. Do-yoon groaned and tossed a pillow at her. Monday came too quickly. The lecture hall was packed, students buzzing with anticipation. Do-yoon tried to focus on her slides, but the whispers were impossible to ignore. I heard his mother owns half the campus buildings. No way he'll lose. At exactly 9, Min-joon entered, not late this time but dramatically, carrying a tall cup of iced Americano. He strode to his seat, all eyes following. Well, Professor, he said smoothly, I watched your Lionheart. The class held its breath. And? Do-yoon asked, chin high. Min-joon leaned back, sipping casually. It was fine. Groans filled the room. Someone shouted, Stop lying, Kong Min-joon. Another booed. Do-yoon crossed her arms. Fine. Care to elaborate? Min-joon smirked. The storyline was decent, the acting surprisingly good, but let's be honest, compared to Crash Landing on You, it's still not on that level. Students murmured, some agreeing, others protesting. But then he added, However, it made me laugh. And I didn't expect that. So maybe you have a point. Gasps. Cheers. Phone's recording. Do-yoon fought a smile. Then I assume you're ready to admit movies as world-class. He tilted his head, eyes glinting. Not yet. One movie isn't enough. I'll need a series. The class erupted in laughter. Always moving the goalpost, Do-yoon muttered under her breath. Consider it research, Min-joon replied innocently. Besides, I don't mind our little bet lasting longer. The way he said it made several students giggle. Do-yoon's pulse jumped, but she masked it with a glare. Later that day, as she left campus, she spotted Min-joon leaning against a sleek black car, waiting. You really have nothing better to do? She asked. On the contrary, he said, opening the door for her. I need a professor to recommend my next movie. Unless you're afraid to spend time outside class. Do-yoon raised a brow. Is this still about the bet? Of course, he said, smirking. What else could it be? She hesitated, then climbed in. The city lights of Seoul flickered in the car windows as it pulled away, and though she wouldn't admit it, not even to herself, her heart was beating far faster than it should. The restaurant buzzed with the chatter of students and the clinking of metal chopsticks. Do-yoon sat stiffly across from Min-joon at a small barbecue table, the glowing grill between them. She had agreed, reluctantly, to guide him through movies picks, but somehow he had twisted it into dinner. So, Min-joon said, flipping slices of marinated beef with practiced ease. You're supposed to choose a movie, but first, you need to prove something. Do-yoon narrowed her eyes. And what's that? That you can survive Korean food without crying. The waiter placed a bubbling pot of kimchi jjigae and a plate of tteokbokki on the table. The fiery red steam rose, daring her. Doyen leaned back. Looks like pepper soup with anger issues. Students at a nearby table overheard and burst out laughing. Minjun's lips curved into a smirk. Go on, Professor. Be brave. She took a bite of the tteokbokki. At first, chewy, tangy, then the heat slammed into her tongue like a Lagos generator exploding. Oh my God, she gasped, fanning her mouth. Who eats fire for dinner? The table behind them roared with laughter. Minjun slid her a glass of water, laughing so hard his shoulders shook. Are you tapping out already? No way, she croaked, grabbing another piece. This food won't disgrace me. She shoved it in. Her eyes watered instantly. Her nose ran. The students around them began filming, chanting, Professor Doyen. Fighting. By the time she finished, she slammed the chopsticks down like a victor claiming her throne. I win. Minjun clapped slowly, still smirking. Not bad. You lasted longer than most foreigners. But now it's my turn. The waiter returned with a foil container. Doyen grinned mischievously. Jollof rice, Nigerian edition. My roommate made it. He eyed the orange-red rice suspiciously. It doesn't look dangerous. Eat, she said sweetly. He scooped a spoonful, popped it in his mouth, and immediately choked. His eyes widened, face flushing red. He grabbed his Americano and downed it in one gulp. Water, he sputtered. This is not rice. This is lava. The entire restaurant erupted. Even the waiters peeked out from behind the counter, laughing. Someone shouted, Movies 1, K-drama 0. Doyen doubled over with laughter, tears streaming down her face. You look like you just saw your ancestors. Minjun glared, though the corners of his mouth betrayed a smile. Unfair. You set me up. You set me up first. She shot back, still laughing. They locked eyes across the table, breathless, surrounded by laughter and flashing phones. And for the first time, Minjun's smirk softened into something less like arrogance and more like curiosity. As they left the restaurant, Doyen shook her head. If this goes viral, I'm blaming you. Minjun's grin was wicked. Too late. We're already trending. By Tuesday morning, Doyen knew something was wrong the moment she stepped onto campus. Students whispered, phones angled suspiciously in her direction. A group of freshmen giggled as she passed, one of them blurting, Professor Doyen. Spicy Queen. Her stomach sank. Oh no. Sure enough, Ifeoma had already sent her a dozen links. The videos were everywhere. Mobile phone professor versus Chaebol, food war. Mobile phone Nigerian jollof versus Korean fire noodles. Mobile phone who won? Vote below. Clips showed Doyen fanning her tongue, Minjun choking dramatically, both of them laughing until tears rolled. The captions were merciless. Some called it the best rom-com scene not on Netflix. Others simply shipped them. #Mindoyen was trending. By the time she reached the lecture hall, the air buzzed like a concert. Students clapped as she entered. Professor, can we get a sequel? One shouted. She shot them a warning look. The laughter died, slightly. And then Minjun arrived. Late again, of course. Only this time, he strutted in like a celebrity, waving at students recording him. You all saw it, right? She nearly burned down my throat with that rice. Laughter erupted. Doyen slammed her notebook onto the desk. This is a classroom, not a talk show, Mr. Kong. He slid into his seat, grinning. With respect, Professor, I think we've become quite popular. Her glare could have melted steel. And whose fault is that? Yours, he said smoothly. You challenged me. The students oohed, enjoying the duel. Doyen inhaled deeply, forcing herself to calm down. Fine. Since we're so popular, let's use it for learning. Today's topic, how media virality shapes culture. She tapped the projector. Behind her, the first slide appeared. Case study, Kong Minjun and Professor Ajayi go viral. The class roared. Even Minjun's mouth fell open. You wouldn't. I would. She folded her arms. Now, analyze this phenomenon. How did a silly dinner become a global talking point? Hence shot up. Students debated algorithms, fandom culture, and cross-cultural appeal. Phones buzzed with live tweets from inside the classroom. But Doyen wasn't laughing. Her academic career was at stake, and she couldn't afford to be reduced to a meme. After class, as students filed out, Min-jun lingered by the door. "Admit it," he said softly, so only she could hear. "You enjoyed it." She turned, flustered. Enjoyed being mocked by the internet. Not mocked. Admired. His gaze held hers. "They like you. They like us." Doyen's heartbeat stumbled. She scoffed to cover it. "This isn't a drama, Mr. Kong." He smirked, leaning closer. "Are you sure?" A camera clicked nearby. Another student whispered, "Olmo, they're just like crash landing on you." Doyen groaned. Min-jun chuckled, hands in his pockets, already walking away. The battle lines were blurring, and Doyen wasn't sure if she was still fighting or already falling. By the next week, the buzz around campus hadn't slowed down. Doyen could hardly walk across the quad without hearing snippets of her name mixed with Min-jun's. "T. Min-doyen. Did you see the meme with the jollof? They should just date already." Doyen tugged her blazer tighter and quickened her pace. "This is madness," she muttered. Of course, Madness wore designer shoes. Min-jun was leaning against the fountain in the center of campus, sunglasses perched on his nose, a lazy smile tugging at his lips. He looked like he'd stepped straight out of a glossy magazine. "Professor," he called, his voice smooth enough to make half the students turn. "We need to settle this." She sighed. "Settle what?" "Our little rivalry." He pushed off the fountain, strolling toward her. Phones immediately came out, students circling like it was a live show. Doyen groaned inwardly. "This is not entertainment. This is harassment." But Min-jun only grinned. "One final bet. You last the semester without giving up on teaching me, and I'll admit your taste for movies is better than mine. Publicly." Gasps. Students whispered wildly. Doyen folded her arms. "And if I don't?" His smirk deepened. "Then you agree to cook jollof rice for me. In my kitchen. With me watching." The crowd erupted, cheers, screams, phones recording every word. Doyen's jaw dropped. "That's ridiculous." "Scared?" he asked, tilting his head. Her pride prickled. "I am not scared. I'm just not interested in playing childish games." "Then walk away," he said lightly, though his eyes glinted with challenge. "But everyone will think you tapped out." She looked around. The expectant faces, the whispers, the flashing cameras. Backing down would mean surrendering not just to Min-jun, but to every student who doubted her authority. Her lips tightened. "Fine. You want to bet? You got one. But when you lose, you will stand in front of this entire class and admit I was right." Min-jun's smile widened, slow and dangerous. He extended his hand. Doyen hesitated, remembering the heat that had passed between them the last time they shook hands. But she couldn't falter now. She clasped his hand firmly. "Deal." The quad exploded in cheers. Professor Doyen fighting. Chable Prince versus Professor. Someone shouted, "This is better than any K-drama." Doyen pulled her hand back quickly, scowling. "Class starts in 10 minutes. Don't be late." "Yes, Professor," Min-jun said with exaggerated obedience, bowing slightly. "Your wish is my command." As she marched off, heart pounding, she could still feel the warmth of his hand lingering in hers. This was supposed to be about proving herself, about discipline, authority, respect. So why did it suddenly feel like something far more dangerous? The rain came suddenly, sheets of water pouring over Seoul as if the heavens had split. Students dashed across the quad, books and umbrellas flailing. Doyen cursed under her breath, clutching her bag to her chest as she sprinted toward the bus stop. Her umbrella snapped backward in the wind, useless. She was drenched in seconds, braids plastered to her face, blazer soaked through. "This city," she muttered. Always one drama after another. As she stumbled onto the pavement, her heel caught on a slick patch. She yelped, slipping. A hand shot out, steadying her. "Professor," a familiar voice drawled. "Careful. Seoul sidewalks aren't as forgiving as Nigerian ones, I suppose." She looked up, blinking rain out of her eyes. Kang Min-jun stood before her, hair damp but styled effortlessly, a black umbrella tilted just enough to shield them both. His car idled nearby, a sleek beast of a machine glowing under the streetlights. Doyen straightened quickly, pulling her arm back. "I didn't ask for your help." He smirked. No, but you needed it. The rain pounded harder. The bus stop sign rattled in the wind. Her bus was nowhere in sight. Minjun gestured toward his car. Get in. Before you drown. I'll wait for the bus. In this storm. He arched a brow. Don't be stubborn. Consider it part of our bet. If you collapse from pneumonia, how will you prove your movies is better than mine? Despite herself, a laugh bubbled in her throat. She shook her head. You're impossible. Compliment accepted, he said smoothly, opening the door. Reluctantly, Doyen slid into the leather seat, shivering as the heater hummed to life. The car smelled faintly of cedar and cologne, expensive yet oddly comforting. Minjun slid in beside her, shutting the umbrella. Raindrops glittered on his jacket, his jawline sharp under the dim interior lights. Where to? He asked. My apartment. She rattled off the address, staring out the window to avoid his gaze. The silence stretched as the car glided through rain-slick streets. Seoul blurred outside, neon lights bleeding into the wet night. Finally, Minjun spoke. You're different from every lecturer I've had. They usually bend to me. But you, his lips twitched. You bite back. She glanced at him, startled. And that bothers you? On the contrary, he said softly. It makes things interesting. Her pulse quickened, though she forced her tone to remain cool. I'm not here to entertain you, Mr. Kong. I'm here to teach. Then teach me, he said, eyes catching hers. Teach me something worth remembering. For a moment, the car was too quiet, the air too charged. Doyen tore her gaze away, scolding herself. When they arrived, he pulled up smoothly. She reached for the door handle, but his voice stopped her. Professor, he said, almost lightly, don't slip on your way up. She rolled her eyes, but her lips betrayed a small smile. Good night, Minjun. As she hurried inside, drenched but oddly warm, she realized something unsettling. For the first time, the bet no longer felt like a game. Hansung University's annual Cultural Exchange Festival was the highlight of the semester. Students and faculty showcased projects that blended traditions, food, art, and performances from around the world. For Doyen, it was her chance to impress the administration and strengthen her contract renewal. She had just finished setting up her proposal when the department chair approached. Dr. Ajayi, he said warmly, your idea of a K-drama comparative showcase is excellent. However, his eyes shifted toward the door. You'll need a student partner to balance perspectives. Doyen followed his gaze. Of course. Leaning casually against the wall, Kang Minjun scrolled on his phone, as though the world revolved around his thumbs. Her heart sank. Sir, surely there are other students. No, the chair interrupted with finality. Mr. Kang is ideal. His background in media has influence. Together, you'll draw a large crowd. Before she could protest, the chair clapped Minjun on the shoulder. Work well with Professor Ajayi. We expect great things. And just like that, her nightmare was confirmed. That afternoon, she found Minjun lounging across two chairs in the study lounge, sipping iced coffee. Lucky me, he said, not even looking up. Partnered with the most trending professor on campus. Unlucky me, Doyen muttered, dropping her binder on the table. This isn't a joke, Minjun. My career is tied to this festival. So if you think you can slack off... He raised a brow, finally meeting her gaze. Relax, Professor. I can be serious when I want to. Prove it. He smirked but leaned forward, scanning her notes. So movies versus K-drama? Easy. You show tearful mothers-in-law. I show chaebol heirs in suits. Doyen pinched the bridge of her nose. You really don't take anything seriously. On the contrary, he said, his tone dropping an octave. I take winning very seriously. For the next hour, to her surprise, Minjun actually focused. He suggested a split-screen video comparing Nigerian wedding party scenes with Korean wedding episodes, and even drafted an outline for a panel discussion. Doyen found herself grudgingly impressed. You actually have good ideas, she admitted. Of course. I didn't inherit billions by being stupid. He winked. She rolled her eyes but couldn't hide her smile. As they packed up, Minjun grabbed his jacket. By the way, Professor, since we're partners, we'll need rehearsals. Late nights. Long hours. She gave him a look. This is a project, not a date. Who said anything about a date? His grin was mischievous. But if you insist. Before she could respond, a group of students passed by, whispering and giggling. One of them whispered loudly, "See? They're totally a couple already." Doyen flushed, clutching her binder tighter. "Focus on the project, Min-jun." But as she stormed ahead, Min-jun followed at a leisurely pace, smirk tugging at his lips. For once, he wasn't sure who was teaching who. The Cultural Exchange Festival was still weeks away, but preparations had the whole campus buzzing. Doyen and Min-jun had already become the talk of the university. Videos of their bickering racked up views daily, and hashtags kept trending. Not everyone was amused. Kang Jae, a fellow media studies student, sat in the front row of class that morning, her perfectly styled hair and expensive handbag screaming privilege. She had admired Min-jun for years, or rather, coveted the status of being seen with him. Watching him spend time with a young Nigerian lecturer instead of her was unbearable. "Good morning, Professor," Jae said sweetly when Doyen walked in. Too sweet. Her smile was the kind that hid knives. Doyen sensed it immediately, but offered a polite nod. "Good morning." Halfway through the lecture, Jae raised her hand. "Professor, since this is international media studies, shouldn't we discuss credibility? Like, how much authority a lecturer has if she's only a few years older than us?" A hush fell over the room. Some students exchanged uneasy glances. Doyen's stomach tightened. "That's a fair question," Doyen said evenly. "Credibility comes not from age, but from knowledge, preparation, and results." Jae's smile widened. "Of course. But still, how much can we really learn from someone who hasn't even lived here long enough to understand our culture?" Murmurs rose. The jab hit deeper than Doyen expected. She swallowed, steadying her voice. "Culture is not about time, it's about openness. I may not have lived here long, but I've studied cultures all my life, including yours." Jae tilted her head. "But if you really understand Korean culture, Professor, you'd know respect is everything. Maybe that's why some students feel uncomfortable being taught by someone so foreign." The words cut like glass. A few students nodded reluctantly. Before Doyen could respond, a voice from the back rang out. "Enough!" All eyes turned. Min-jun leaned forward, expression sharp, his lazy smirk gone. "Professor Ajayi has more discipline and brains than half the lecturers here," he said coolly. "If anyone doubts her credibility, they can test it in debate. But don't embarrass yourself by throwing cheap insults in class." Gasps filled the room. Jae's face flushed crimson. She sputtered, "Min-jun, I wasn't." "Yes, you were," he cut in, voice like ice. "And you should be ashamed." The silence was deafening. Doyen's chest tightened, not just with relief, but something else she couldn't name. When class ended, Jae stormed out, humiliated. Students lingered, whispering about how Min-jun had defended Doyen so fiercely. As they walked out together, Doyen said quietly, "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Min-jun replied, hands in his pockets. "You're my partner, and I don't let anyone mess with what's mine." Her heart skipped. "Excuse me." He smirked. "Relax, Professor. I meant the project." But the glint in his eyes told her even he didn't believe his own excuse. The library was nearly empty that evening, its tall glass windows glowing against the Seoul skyline. Doyen spread her notes across the table, highlighters lined in neat rows. The Cultural Exchange Festival was only 2 weeks away, and their joint presentations still needed rehearsals. Min-jun arrived late as usual, but this time he carried 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Professor," he said smoothly, sliding one toward her. "Black, no sugar. You strike me as the type." She blinked, surprised. "How would you know that?" He smirked, settling into the chair opposite. "Observation. You don't like sweet distractions. You like control." Her cheeks warmed despite herself. "Or maybe I'm just lactose intolerant." He chuckled, low and easy. "Fair enough." They worked in silence for a while, the only sound the scratch of pens and the occasional tap of a keyboard. Doyen was focused on arranging clips of movies films against K-drama scenes when she realized Min-jun hadn't turned a page in 10 minutes. "Are you even reading?" she asked. He leaned back, arms crossed, studying her instead of the book. "Why would I? This is more entertaining." Her eyes narrowed. "You're impossible." And you're blushing, he countered. She wasn't, but the heat in her cheeks betrayed her. Focus, Mr. Kong, or you'll drag us both down. He sighed dramatically, leaning forward. Fine, I'll be serious. But serious for Minjun turned out to be surprisingly helpful. He suggested using trending YouTube compilations to show how African and Korean media intersected globally. He even translated a few Korean drama clips into English, his voice surprisingly smooth as he read the subtitles aloud. Thank you so much for staying with us till this very point in the story. If you're enjoying it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned from this story and your thoughts on how we can keep improving to bring you the very best. Doin caught herself smiling. You're actually good at this. Don't sound so shocked, he said, mock offense in his tone. I told you, I take winning seriously. She laughed softly, and for a moment, the weight between them shifted. The bickering melted into something lighter, easier. When the library lights flickered, signaling closing time, they both groaned. Papers were scattered everywhere. Doyen leaned forward to gather them, and at the same time, so did Minjun. Their hands brushed. For a second, neither moved. His skin was warm, his fingers lingering just a moment too long. She glanced up and found him watching her, eyes darker than usual. The air thickened. Doyen pulled back quickly, heart racing. We should pack up. Of course, he said, his smirk softer this time. As they stepped into the cool night, Minjun walked her to the gate. You know, he said casually, if we keep this up, people really will think we're dating. She shot him a glare. Let them think what they want. This is just a project. He leaned closer, voice low. Keep telling yourself that, Professor. Her breath caught, but she didn't answer. Instead, she turned and hurried down the path, clutching her notes tightly. But long after she disappeared into the night, Minjun remained at the gate, smiling to himself. Because for once, the game no longer felt like his to control. The following weekend, Minjun was summoned to the Kong residence, a sprawling glass mansion on the edge of Seoul. The family's driver bowed as he opened the car door, but Minjun barely noticed. He already knew what this dinner meant. Inside, the table gleamed with silver cutlery, dishes arranged with artistic precision. At the head sat Mrs. Kong, his mother, elegant in silk, her expression as cold as the marble floors. You're late, she said without looking up. Traffic, Minjun replied flatly, sliding into his seat. She sipped her tea, eyes finally meeting his. You've been entertaining yourself with that Nigerian lecturer. Minjun's jaw tightened. News travels fast. Of course it does, she said, setting her cup down sharply. When my son, heir of Kong Group, is filmed eating street food and laughing like a fool for the entire internet to see. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. It was harmless. Harmless. Her voice was clipped. Do you have any idea what people are whispering? Investors questioning your judgment. Society mocking us. And all because you let some foreign girl drag you into her little games. Minjun leaned back, his tone cool. She didn't drag me anywhere. I chose. That startled her. Her brows arched. Chose. Minjun, you are not free to choose. You have responsibilities, a reputation. You cannot waste your time, or worse, your name, on a passing distraction. The word distraction struck like a blade. Her name is Professor Ajayi, he said evenly, though his fingers curled against the armrest. Mrs. Kang's lips thinned. Professor? Please. She is a contract hire. Temporary. When her program ends, she'll leave, and you will be left looking like a fool. Minjun's chest tightened, but he didn't let it show. Maybe you underestimate her. Maybe you forget who you are, his mother shot back. Silence settled between them, sharp as glass. Finally, she exhaled. Listen to me, Minjun. You cannot afford weakness, especially not now, with the board watching. End this, whatever it is, before it costs you everything. Later that night, Minjun sat in his car outside the mansion, the city lights flickering in the distance. His phone buzzed. Another clip of him and Doyen laughing at the library had gone viral. He watched it in silence. Her smile lit the frame, warm and unguarded. The way she teased him, the way she didn't bow to his name or his wealth, it was unlike anything he'd known. And for the first time, the weight of his family's expectations pressed harder than ever. Could he really choose Doyen? Or would he, as always, be forced to choose the Kong legacy instead? The glow of her laptop lit up Doyen's small apartment as she adjusted her headset. The time difference meant her parents were just finishing lunch in Lagos while she sat in Seoul at nearly midnight. Her mother's face filled the screen first, warm and familiar. Doyen, me. My daughter, look at you. You've lost weight. Are they feeding you well in Korea? Doyen chuckled, trying to hide the lump in her throat. Mummy, I'm fine. Just busy. Her father leaned into view, adjusting his glasses. Busy is good, but remember, this contract is not permanent. You must use it wisely. Gain experience, then return home. She hesitated. I know, Daddy. But what if I wanted to stay longer? There are opportunities here. Her father's brow furrowed. Opportunities, yes. But do not forget, Nigeria needs you. Your people need you. And besides, what future can you have there? Alone. Her mother touched his arm gently, then looked back at Doyen. Your father is right. Seoul is not home. These Koreans, they will never fully accept you. The words stung more than she expected. She forced a smile. It's not about acceptance. It's about learning, growing. Her father sighed, leaning back. Just don't lose yourself, Doyen. Remember where you come from. And remember, we expect you back by Christmas. Of course, she said softly, though her heart ached. When the call ended, the silence of her apartment pressed heavy. She closed her laptop and buried her face in her hands. The next day on campus, Doyen carried herself as usual, straight spine, firm voice, but the weight of her parents' words lingered. She paused outside the lecture hall, watching students chatter and laugh. Here, she was Professor Ajayi, but inside she felt like a girl trying to balance two worlds pulling her apart. Professor! She turned. Min-jun stood nearby, hands in his pockets, watching her. You look tired, he said quietly, his tone lacking its usual bite. I'm fine, she replied too quickly. His brow furrowed. No, you're not. She sighed, shaking her head. Do you ever feel like, no matter where you stand, you don't fully belong? The question slipped out before she could stop herself. For once, Min-jun didn't smirk. He just looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. Every day, he admitted softly. Their gazes held, and for a moment, the noise of the campus faded. Then Doyen broke it, clearing her throat. We should rehearse for the festival. Of course, he said, falling into step beside her. Neither spoke, but the silence between them was no longer heavy. It was fragile, almost tender, like two people carrying different burdens who suddenly realized they weren't as alone as they thought. The rehearsal room buzzed with activity as students prepared for the Cultural Exchange Festival. Posters of movie stills and K-drama heartthrobs lined the walls. Doyen adjusted the projector while Min-jun lazily flipped through note cards, pretending to work. The door swung open. Heels clicked against the floor, sharp and confident. Min-jun. The voice was honeyed, but Doyen instantly felt the sting in it. A tall woman stepped inside, draped in designer clothes that screamed old money. Her long black hair cascaded down her back, and her red lipstick curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Subin, Min-jun said flatly, standing. Doyen's stomach dropped. X. It didn't take a genius to guess. What are you doing here? He asked. I heard you were involved in some strange project. Her gaze flicked to Doyen, sharp and assessing. I had to see it for myself. Doyen offered a polite nod. Hello. I'm Professor Ajayi. Subin's brows arched. Professor? You can't be serious. She looks younger than us. Min-jun's jaw tightened. She's the lecturer. And my partner. The word hung heavy in the air. Subin's smile turned icy. Partner? That's rich. Since when do you take orders from anyone? She moved closer to him, brushing his sleeve. Or maybe you've changed. Though I doubt it's for the better. Doyen felt heat rise in her chest, but she kept her voice steady. Miss Subin, if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. Subin laughed lightly. Work? Or play? Her eyes swept over Doyen. I give this a few weeks. Then she'll go back to her country, and you'll be done with your little experiment. The words hit harder than Doyen wanted to admit. She clenched her fists. Enough, Min-jun said sharply, pulling back from Subin's touch. His voice was cold, but his eyes flicked toward Doyen, almost apologetic. "This isn't your business anymore." Subin's smile faltered. For the first time, she looked rattled. "You're really defending her?" "Yes," Minjun said firmly. The room went silent. Subin's face hardened. She turned on her heel, her heels echoing as she stormed out. "We'll see how long this lasts," she muttered before the door slammed shut. Doyen busied herself with the projector, heart pounding. She didn't want him to see how much the words had gotten under her skin. "She's wrong," Minjun said suddenly, breaking the silence. Doyen looked up. "About what?" "That you'll leave." His eyes met hers, steady and unflinching. "I don't care how temporary your contract is. While you're here, you matter." Her breath caught, and for once, she couldn't think of a clever reply. So she looked away, blinking quickly. "We should get back to work." But her heart betrayed her, racing wildly at the sound of his words. The morning air on campus felt different, charged, uneasy. Doyen sensed it the moment she stepped out of her apartment. By the time she reached the lecture hall, the whispers confirmed her worst fear. "Did you see the video? Someone leaked it." Subin must have done it. She froze when a group of students burst into laughter, holding up their phones. On the screen, a grainy clip played. Minjun and Doyen in the library, their hands brushing, their faces inches apart. The caption blared, "Mobile phone, Professor Ajayi seduces her student." Her stomach dropped. Inside the lecture hall, every seat was buzzing with chatter. Some students looked at her with curiosity, others with judgment. Jae, the rival, smirked openly. Doyen placed her notes on the desk, willing her voice to stay steady. "Good morning, class. Let's begin." A student in the back interrupted. "Professor, are we studying international media or international dating?" The room erupted in laughter. Heat burned Doyen's cheeks. Her chest tightened, but she refused to break. "Sit down. This is not appropriate." But the damage was done. Every slide she presented, every word she spoke was drowned out by whispers and giggles. She saw the phones angled toward her, recording, waiting for another slip. By the time the lecture ended, her dignity felt in tatters. She gathered her things quickly, desperate to leave unnoticed, but a group of students blocked the doorway. Jae stood at the front, arms crossed. "Professor," Jae said loudly, "is it true? Are you using this class to get closer to Kang Minjun?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras rolled. Doyen's hands trembled, but her voice came out calm. "This is harassment. Move aside." Jae sneered. "If you can't handle questions, maybe you don't belong here." The words echoed in her chest, so close to what her parents had warned her. Before she could respond, the door slammed open. Minjun strode in, eyes blazing. "Enough!" The room went silent. He walked straight to Doyen's side, facing the crowd. "If anyone here thinks they can insult Professor Ajayi, they'll deal with me." The weight of his name hung heavy. Students shifted uncomfortably, no longer so bold. Jae faltered, but tried to recover. "We're just asking." "No," Minjun cut in sharply. "You're spreading lies. Professor Ajayi has more integrity than all of you combined. She's the reason this class has any meaning." Gasps. Murmurs. Someone muttered, "Stay back." Doyen's throat tightened. She wanted to protest, to stop him from making it worse, but part of her ached with gratitude. Minjun turned to her, his voice softer but still firm. "Don't listen to them. You've earned your place here." Her eyes stung as the crowd slowly dispersed, whispers fading into silence. For the first time since arriving in Seoul, Doyen felt the weight of the world pressing down on her and the warmth of someone else holding it back. The fallout from the leaked video didn't disappear overnight. Whispers still followed Doyen across campus. Some students offered pitying smiles, others avoided her entirely. But what struck her most was how Minjun refused to shrink into the shadows. He walked beside her, unbothered by the stares. He laughed louder than usual in class, teased her openly, and dared anyone to make a comment. His very presence was a shield. Still, Doyen worried. "You shouldn't involve yourself so much," she told him one afternoon as they prepared for rehearsal. "This isn't your battle." "It is," he said simply. "They dragged me into it the moment they mentioned your name." She shook her head. "Minjun, your reputation is mine to risk," he interrupted, eyes locking with hers. "And I'm not letting anyone use it to hurt you." Before she could reply, the auditorium doors opened. Students, faculty, and even local press streamed in. The Cultural Exchange Festival was holding its preview showcase, and their project was up next. Doyen's hands trembled as she adjusted the microphone. She had prepared slides comparing different K-drama, complete with clips and subtitles. But as she glanced at the crowd, doubt crept in. What if they laughed again? What if Subin or GAE had planted more sabotage? The lights dimmed. The showcase began. Halfway through Doyen's introduction, Minjun suddenly rose from his seat and stepped onto the stage. Gasps rippled through the audience. "Mr. Kong!" she whispered urgently, but he ignored her. Taking the mic, he faced the crowd with the ease of someone born to command attention. "You've all seen the rumors. You've all whispered, laughed, and speculated. But let me be clear. Professor Ajayi is the most capable lecturer I've ever had. She's disciplined, fearless, and smarter than anyone gives her credit for. If you mock her, you mock me. And I don't tolerate that." The auditorium went silent. Cameras flashed. Students exchanged stunned looks. Doyen's breath caught. She wanted to disappear, but at the same time, something in her chest swelled. Warm, powerful, terrifying. Minjun gestured toward her slides. "And as for her movie recommendation, you think it's second-rate because you don't understand it. But I watched those films. They're bold, emotional, alive. If you give them a chance, you'll see what Professor Ajayi has been teaching all along, that great stories cross borders." Applause erupted, tentative at first, then louder, rolling through the hall like thunder. Even some professors rose to their feet. Doyen stood frozen, blinking back tears. When Minjun handed her back the microphone, his eyes lingered on hers. "Finish strong," he murmured. With trembling hands, she did, and for the first time since stepping foot in Seoul, she felt not like an outsider, but like a voice worth hearing. The festival preview ended in a blur of applause, photos, and congratulations. Doyen smiled through it all, but her heart beat unevenly. Every time she glanced at Minjun, she saw the boy who had stood in front of everyone and defended her without hesitation. When the crowd finally dispersed, she gathered her notes, ready to retreat to her apartment and collapse. But Minjun caught her wrist gently. "Not yet," he said softly. "What do you mean?" "Come with me." Before she could protest, he led her out of the auditorium and into the cool Seoul night. They walked in silence until they reached the rooftop garden of the university's tallest building. The city stretched below them, endless lights, traffic humming, the Han River glistening in the distance. Above, the stars peeked through the haze. Doyen crossed her arms, partly against the chill, partly against the swirl of nerves in her chest. "Why are we here, Minjun?" He leaned against the railing, gazing at the skyline. For once, there was no smirk, no mask of arrogance. Just quiet. "Do you know what it's like," he began, "to be surrounded by everything, wealth, power, expectations, and still feel alone?" Her breath caught. She thought of her parents' voices over the laptop screen, reminding her she didn't belong here. "Yes," she admitted softly. He turned to her then, eyes searching hers. "When you came here, I thought you were just another challenge. Someone to annoy, to test. But you're not. You're," he hesitated, the word catching. "You're different." Her heart thudded. "Different how?" Minjun stepped closer, his voice low. "You don't care about my name. You don't bow to my money. You make me laugh when I don't want to, and you make me think when I'd rather not. You're the first person who's ever looked at me and seen me." Doyen swallowed hard, caught between disbelief and the flutter rising in her chest. "Minjun, I like you, Professor." His lips curved into the faintest smile. "No, more than that. I think I'm falling in love with you." The words hung in the night air, heavy and impossible. Doyen's mind raced. Her parents, her contract, the whispers on campus. This was dangerous, reckless, maybe even doomed. And yet, when she looked into his eyes, she saw no cold air, no untouchable Chable. Just a boy, vulnerable and sincere under the stars. She exhaled shakily. "You really don't make life easy, do you?" He chuckled softly, stepping closer still. "I wasn't trying to make it easy. I was trying to make it real." For a long moment, They stood there, two worlds colliding, two hearts hesitating. Then, slowly, Doyen let her guard slip, just enough for her hand to brush his. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know where this will lead, Minjun. But maybe I don't want it to end. His smile deepened, tender and sure. That's all I needed to hear. Above them, the stars burned brighter, as if the universe itself had been waiting for this confession. For a few days after the rooftop confession, everything felt lighter. Doyen and Minjun rehearsed late into the night, laughter replacing their usual sparring. Students noticed the change, how he carried her books without complaint, how her scolding had softened into playful banter. But peace never lasted long in Seoul. The first blow came in the form of an email forwarded to the university board. It contained grainy photos, Doyen and Minjun standing close on the rooftop, their hands brushing, faces too near to be professional. The subject line read, "Inappropriate relations between lecturer and student." By the next morning, it was everywhere. Doyen sat frozen in the department office as the dean's voice echoed. "Dr. Ajayi, these accusations are serious. You are here on a temporary contract. If this escalates, your position and your visa could be at risk." Her throat tightened. "Dean, I assure you, my work has always been professional." "But perception matters," the dean interrupted. "For your sake and ours, you should distance yourself from Mr. Kong until the festival concludes." The words landed like stones. That evening, she confronted Minjun in the rehearsal room. "We need to stop." He looked up from the projector, confused. "Stop what?" "This, whatever this is." She gestured between them. "It's already affecting my career. If I lose my job, I lose everything." He frowned, stepping closer. "So you're just going to run away? Because of gossip?" "It's not gossip," she snapped, voice cracking. "It's my reality. I'm not a chaebol heir, Minjun. I don't have the luxury of surviving scandal. One wrong move, and I'm on the next flight back to Lagos." His expression faltered, frustration giving way to something softer. "Doyen." She turned away, blinking back tears. "You don't understand. You'll always have your family, your wealth, your name. All I have is this chance. I can't risk it." Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he said quietly, "So that's it? After everything?" Her chest ached, but she forced the words out. "Yes, that's it." She grabbed her bag and walked out, leaving him standing in the empty room, his jaw clenched, his fists tight. Back in her apartment, Doyen collapsed onto the couch. Ifeoma tried to comfort her, but the ache inside was too sharp. She stared at her phone, Minjun's name glowing on the screen with unread messages. "Professor, talk to me. Don't shut me out. Please." She turned the phone face down, tears blurring her vision. For the first time since coming to Seoul, she felt utterly alone. And yet, somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the breaking point. The decision weighed on Doyen like a stone. The whispers, the board's warning, the disapproving stares, it was too much. She booked a flight to Lagos. One way. At dawn, she wheeled her suitcase through Incheon Airport, her heart heavy. She told no one, not even Ifeoma. She wanted to slip away quietly, like a shadow. But Seoul had other plans. Meanwhile, Minjun sat in his car outside the Kong Group headquarters, ignoring the steady stream of emails piling up. He hadn't slept since their fight. Every message he sent to Doyen went unanswered. When he finally called Ifeoma, desperation cracking his voice, she broke. "She's leaving, Minjun, flight today." The words detonated inside him. Without another thought, he sped through the city, weaving recklessly through traffic. Doyen stood in line at the departure gate, clutching her passport. Her chest ached, but she repeated the words like armor. This is the right choice. This is survival. Then she heard it, her name. Doyen. Heads turned. Minjun sprinted through the terminal, security guards on his heels. He shoved past startled travelers, his suit jacket flying open. "Doyen, wait!" She froze. "Minjun, what are you doing here?" He skidded to a stop in front of her, chest heaving, eyes blazing with something rawer than she had ever seen. "You can't leave," he said, voice cracking. Her throat tightened. "I don't have a choice." "Yes, you do," he shot back. "Stay. With me." We'll fight this together. Tears stung her eyes. Min-jun, you don't understand. I'll lose everything. You won't lose me. His voice rang through the terminal, drawing murmurs from the crowd. And if I have to give up everything, my family name, my company, my future, to keep you here, I will. Because none of it matters without you. Gasps rippled through the bystanders. Phones came out, already filming. Doyen's hands trembled. Min-jun. He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You once told me you don't know where you belong. Well, I don't know either. But I know this. When I'm with you, I finally feel like I do. Her chest cracked open. All the fear, the doubt, the voices telling her she didn't belong. His words sliced through them. She exhaled shakily. You're crazy. Completely, he said, a desperate grin breaking through. But only for you. The boarding announcement echoed overhead. Her flight was ready. Doyen looked down at her suitcase, then back at him. His hand was outstretched, trembling but certain. Slowly, she let the handle fall from her grip. The crowd erupted in applause as she stepped into his arms. For the first time, Doyen didn't care about the cameras, the whispers, the consequences. She cared only about the boy who had run through an airport to stop her from leaving. And in his arms, Seoul finally felt like home. News of the airport scene spread faster than wildfire. By evening, clips of Min-jun's declaration had climbed to the top of trending searches in both Korea and Nigeria. The hashtags #MinDoyen and #LoveLessonsInSeoul lit up social media. Not everyone celebrated. At the Kong residence, Mrs. Kong slammed her phone onto the table. He has humiliated us. In public. For a foreign lecturer. The board members whispered, scandal rippling through their circles. But Min-jun faced them with unflinching calm. If protecting her is humiliation, then I'll gladly be humiliated. His father's voice rumbled like thunder. You are the heir to Kong Group. You don't get to throw away your future for some exchange hire. I'm not throwing it away, Min-jun shot back. I'm choosing a future that's mine, not one you've scripted. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, his defiance wasn't brushed off as youthful rebellion. It was conviction. Meanwhile, in Lagos, Doyen's parents huddled around their television, watching the viral clips. Her mother's hands trembled. See how they are mocking our daughter online. They say she trapped him. That she's shameless. Her father's brow furrowed. But look at his eyes. Does that look like a man trapped? Doyen called later that night, her voice shaking. Daddy, Mummy, I didn't mean for it to happen this way. Her father interrupted gently. Doyen, listen. We wanted you to come home because we feared the world would not accept you. But if you have found someone who does, someone who will fight for you, then maybe that is enough. Her mother's eyes glistened. But will his people ever accept you? There was no easy answer. 2 days later, the families met in a neutral space, a high-rise conference room overlooking the Han River. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Mrs. Kang's tone was clipped. This is unacceptable. Do you know what people are saying? Doyen sat stiffly, palms clammy, but her voice was steady. Yes, I know. They're saying what they've always said, that I don't belong. But I didn't come here to beg for belonging. I came to teach, to learn, and to live with dignity. If that makes me unworthy of your son, then so be it. But I won't apologize for existing. The room went silent. Even Min-jun blinked, struck by her courage. His father cleared his throat. For the first time, there was something softer in his gaze. You speak boldly, like someone who has nothing to hide. Mrs. Kong stiffened but said nothing. Min-jun reached across the table, covering Doyen's hand with his. This isn't about business or legacy. It's about us. And I won't let go. For once, no one argued. It wasn't approval, not yet. But it was the first crack in the walls that had stood between them. Spring unfurled over Seoul, cherry blossoms scattering petals across the university courtyard like blessings. Graduation day had arrived, and the campus was alive with music, laughter, and flashing cameras. Doyen adjusted her robe nervously, standing among the faculty. The weeks since the family meeting had been tense but transformative. Mrs. Kong hadn't offered approval, but she had stopped her open disapproval. Min-jun's father had even invited Doyen to dinner once, silently acknowledging her presence at the table. It wasn't acceptance yet, but it was progress. And today, as the graduates marched across the stage, Doyen felt something she hadn't since arriving in Seoul: belonging. The dean stepped up to the podium, giving the traditional closing remarks. But when he gestured for a student speaker, Min-jun unexpectedly rose. Gasps rippled through the audience. Clad in his gown, he walked to the podium with the easy confidence of someone who knew all eyes were his. Doyen's heart pounded. What is he doing? He adjusted the mic. Graduates, professors, families, we've all learned a lot here. Not just about books or grades, but about ourselves. For me, the greatest lesson didn't come from a textbook. He paused, letting the silence stretch, then smiled faintly. It came from a professor. One who taught me discipline, respect, and courage. One who challenged me to be more than my name. Murmurs spread. Cameras clicked. Min-jun's gaze found Doyen's, steady and unflinching. Professor Doyen Ajayi, you taught me more than media studies. You taught me how to live honestly, how to love honestly, and for that, I'll be forever grateful. The courtyard erupted in applause. Some students cheered, some cried, others shouted, "Day back," and Min Doyen forever. Doyen's cheeks burned, but tears pricked her eyes. She hadn't expected this boldness, this public acknowledgement of what they had fought so hard to protect. When the ceremony ended, Min-jun cut through the crowd to reach her. "You didn't have to do that," she whispered, though her voice shook with emotion. "Yes, I did," he replied simply. "Because you're not just my professor. You're my future." She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "You're reckless. And you love it," he teased, pulling her closer. Around them, graduates tossed caps into the sky, blossoms raining down like confetti. In the chaos, Min-jun leaned in and kissed her, not hidden, not ashamed, but openly, as Seoul glittered around them. For once, no one whispered that she didn't belong. The applause, the cheers, the smiling faces proved otherwise. Doyen had come to Seoul as a contract lecturer, unsure if she could last a semester. Now she stood as something more: partner, equal, loved. And as she held Min-jun's hand beneath the falling petals, she knew their story was no longer about bets or battles. It was about love, stubborn, unlikely, and stronger than legacy. The greatest lesson of all. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned from this story and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Every story we bring to you is crafted with passion, care, and dedication, because here at Munlyt Stories, our mission is simple: to create stories that entertain, inspire, and connect us all. So, keep the conversation going in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Munlyt Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and see you in the next story.